So, DailyRoLord, why do you hate the nostalgia-filled finale from Season 10 March of the Oni, the finale of the entire Oni trilogy as a whole, that has so many callbacks to the pilots in Season 1? Why do you dislike this nostalgia-filled finale?
Well, for all the nostalgia this episode had, it used that nostalgia pretty poorly. I think there's definitely a time and place for fan service, and it works really well sometimes, but this episode relies on it way too much. The forging of the golden weapons, ultimately something that led to very little in this episode. Even the actual forging scene was super, super fast-paced. Just felt like something they were trying to do as fast as possible. Then there's the tornado creation scene. This one is pretty controversial, and I can completely see why. The actual scene itself is done really well. I think it is so cool. The music is great. Even the moment that Garmadon has in that scene is awesome. But the actual idea of the tornado of creation in this episode makes zero sense. How this one tornado destroys the entire race of Oni. I mean, that's insane, and that is unbelievably dumb, I think. Also, there's other stuff this episode does badly, such as the Jay and Nia story. It's pretty underwhelming. And then, of course, there's Cole's Fall. Cole's Fall is... I think they really could have done that better. But yeah, those are probably the main reasons why I dislike this episode.
I can agree with two of your points. One, yeah, the Oni in this season weren't done so well. And two, yeah, maybe they could have done a better follow-up to Cole's Fall in the previous episode. I don't think that the episode was too fast-paced. Well, yes, it was definitely a more fast-paced episode than other episodes in Ninjago, especially this season, considering episodes like Into the Breach and The Fall were a bit slower-paced. I still think it works for what it's trying to do, and I do not agree that I think the scene where Kai is reforging the golden weapons is a really good callback to pilots, and it really does that really well. And yes, it's a bit more fast-paced, but I just think it works as like just a faster-paced scene. If it was too slow, I think it kind of just would have from the pacing of the finale, and you know, because we were trying to get straight into the finale. And also, some of the Omega's lines, well, yes, he's hard to understand. I do really like some of his lines that he says to Garmadon in this episode. And then, also, the Tornado of Creation. Great nostalgic moment, and personally, yeah, it was kind of strange that it wiped out all the Oni, but still, I mean, it's the Tornado of Creation. It was done really well. It looked, great in the episode. And, yes, it seemed very convenient that it wiped out all the Oni, but I still personally just think that it was just, it made sense that would wipe out all the Oni. I mean, yes, it was all of a sudden, but I mean, honestly, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm kind of rambling on here, but for me, I just felt like it worked when it just wiped out all the Oni. It was a good way to dispose of them. Like the first thing the ninjas used to dispose of most of the Skullkin, which, yes, they just made a cell here, but I mean, they're stronger now. They know more Spinjitzu, so it makes sense that the Tornado of Spinjitzu was more powerful, especially because there was more people participating in it and whatnot. But, yeah.
Yeah, I can agree that it was definitely more powerful, but I think the Oni are portrayed as probably the strongest and most formidable Ninjago foes yet, and I think for them to be defeated in such an easy way, it seems. Other villain feats were characterized as much more challenging. For example, the Sons of Garmadon, a biker gang scene, was a harder, more challenging foe for the ninja than the Oni. These interdimensional demons who they took over Ninjago so quickly, and yet they got defeated so quickly as well, and that just doesn't make sense. I think I could believe this more if, like, let's say the Tornado of Creation killed the Oni at the mountain. I think that is completely believable because there are more people in the tornado, which that itself might be a bit questionable too, because we've been told that the tornado is just supposed to be the 4 elements. But in my opinion, that's not too big of an issue. I don't really care much about that. But anyways, what I was saying, I think it's too much. I think there had to be some sort of bigger way if they really wanted every Oni everywhere to die. The tornado of creation is something we've seen before, and it's kind of funny. The tornado kills the Oni, but it doesn't kill the skeletons. The skeletons are some of the weakest Ninjago villains yet, and yeah, I mean, the same thing is used to defeat both, but one destroys the entire Oni race and the other just builds a Ferris wheel. I don't really like it. Yeah, I do agree with you. I think this episode is great stuff for Garmadon. That's probably this episode's strongest area, and you know, while we're at it, the season's strongest area. But I don't think that's enough to save this episode from the other bad stuff. I do agree. I love Omega's conversation with Garmadon, but it's interesting because half of those lines from Omega are just reused from the previous 2 episodes. They seem to have that issue a lot with this character. They just reuse his lines when he says "You are Oni" and when he says something about their invasion being inevitable, and those are both reused lines. But yeah, that's. I'll let you go ahead now.
Okay, well, yes, I understand that the Omega reuses his lines. It kind of makes sense for how he does it, because Garmadon doesn't really understand his point throughout the installment. He doesn't really, you know, and he's trying to convince Garmadon his point, so he kind of is basically, yes, it could be a bit repetitive, but I mean, it makes sense why he'd be saying similar stuff, because he's trying to understand what Garmadon's exactly doing and why he's helping the ninja when he himself has, you know, lots of Oni blood in him. So that just, I mean, I felt like that made sense to me. And I mean, I really enjoyed the pilots as an installment, so all the callbacks to them and this installment I just really enjoyed. And I mean, I totally understand why some people wouldn't understand that tornado of creation, you know, destroyed all the Oni, but I just felt like it made sense for the first thing that was used to kind of destroy an army in the series is also the last thing in this Masters of Spinjitzu era, so I just felt like it was great payoff to something in the pilots, and I just really enjoyed what they did with that. And then some people complain about, I don't think you do per se, but some people complain about how Garmadon's story was open-ended, but I mean, like, personally, I just feel like if they finish the story there, it would just feel, you know, it would just feel like a cop-out. They really just, I mean, yes, they haven't used them in Wild Brain yet, but they don't plan on reusing characters, but it just would have felt like a cop-out if they just either had him die or turn good. Oh yeah, I'll go ahead and see what you have to say back to this.
No, on that, I completely agree. When the episode first released, I was definitely kind of annoyed. Like, are they seriously just going to leave Garmadon's story open-ended? But in hindsight, that was a major win on this episode's part, because, as you know, this episode does try to conclude a lot of stuff. And in my opinion, it doesn't do so well. Such as with Kai becoming a good blacksmith finally, Jay and Nia kind of married or engaged or something. This episode is really full of these stories where they kind of try to make it seem like the ninja stories are complete, and I think it kind of fails. But with Garmadon, they know that, you know, maybe we shouldn't do anything with him. Maybe we should just leave his story a bit open-ended for now. And I think that's great, because the truth is, this episode and season doesn't have enough time to deliver a solid final conclusion for Garmadon. Now, that being said, I really do hope he returns in the future, because I think there's more to be done with him. This season is wonderful for him. He is, as I said, easily the best part of this season. Regarding the whole "You Are Oni" line, I do think it's a good line, because it's supposed to be this, you know, Omega is trying to figure out, well, why doesn't he feel Oni, right? I do think, though, the line is used a bit too much. It's used 3 times in the season, I think 1 in each episode. But in my opinion, the worst line is when he says, again, that inevitable line, which I can't really seem to remember entirely. He says that exact same line twice, and it's a bit strange. Yeah, the "You Are Oni" line it's okay. I think it's best used in this episode with the Omega speech, which is probably the best thing the Omega did in this season. And regarding the tornado of creation, it definitely didn't come out of nowhere, I feel. I mean, they totally foreshadowed it in the first episode when they pointed out the tornado on the monastery murals. That's not really my issue with it. I do think there were a lot of great callbacks in this episode, but this episode relies way too heavily on these callbacks. You know, Seabound is a season that does callbacks a lot better. Seabound has callbacks to season 11, 12, 13, features returning characters and stuff. But this episode endings, it just tries to make these callbacks the basis of the plot, and I don't think that's done well at all.
I see your point, but still, I mean, I just feel like this season does at least equal callbacks. As much as, like, yes, they may feel more fast-paced, it just made sense for this to... I would have been okay if this was the finale to the show. Well, yes, it could have been better in some areas. I still would have felt satisfied. And then one point I haven't made yet about why I personally think that the Jay and Nia love story actually worked with the ending, you know, because they kind of proposed to her during the battle, kind of Will Turner and Elizabeth Swong style from Pirates of the Caribbean, and I just think that really worked for both their characters. Daily, go ahead and talk.
Yeah, I think the issue was the Jay and Nia story just kind of comes out of nowhere. It doesn't feel like it's really character motivated or like it's really relevant. I think this season just wanted us to feel like Jay and Nia's love story had gone to a new level, and yet the season doesn't do anything with those characters other than just saying that Jay proposed to Nia. Also, I think the thing that's also kind of strange about this is the yin-yang promise is a cool concept, but it's not something we can relate to because they specifically say it's not marriage, it's not engagement, it's this other thing that we've never ever seen before in Ninjago, and I don't think it has the same weight to it as this brand new concept introduced just for the season, introduced just so we could say Jay and Nia are finally together. But yeah, I mean, it's a cute story, it's a sweet story, but it's not really one that's relevant to this season too much, other than the writers just trying to say we have done justice to Jay and Nia's character. This is their conclusion, and I would have to completely disagree that this would be a satisfying conclusion to the show. I think it would be really underwhelming. I don't think it's a season that does great stuff for the characters. Kai has a great moment in 97, and then he does very little in 98. Lloyd is fine, yeah, but there's still some open ends for his character, such as his trust issue story. Garmadon is great. If this were to be the season finale, I would be a bit disappointed that we never got a real definite conclusion for Garmadon, but I could live with that. I think this season does him really well. But Zane is practically non-existent in this season. Cole doesn't really develop. He has his fall story, which I think that story was super underwhelming. I think it was really, really lame how they tried to make us believe that he was dead. The ninja even believed it, and then super predictable. He returns, and he only returns because he conveniently left his tread assaulter. No, his earth driller in the city. That is so unbelievably convenient. I don't like that at all.
I like I said at the beginning of the video, I totally agree with the Cole points. Yeah, definitely was pretty convenient that he did that. But one thing we haven't discussed yet is I personally think that I like how the Lloyd and the Spirit Realm story works, and how, I mean, as much as it's kind of strange that he just kind of, you know, we think he's dead, but he's not, I still think it works as kind of a somewhat conclusion for his character. And it makes sense that he wouldn't agree to go with the first Spinjitzu Master, and he would just agree to keep fighting for Ninjago. So I just feel like that personally, me, helped his character, and I think it actually worked, which is another reason I feel like that this episode would have been at least a decent conclusion to the Masters of the Spinjitzu era.
No, I really like that they had a first Spinjitzu Master scene. It feels very fitting for the show's 100th episode. It's not really just a thank you to Lloyd and the ninja. It's beyond that, kind of like a thank you to the viewers for sticking with the show for 8 years, 9 years. I think it was a good scene. It was really cool to see the first Spinjitzu Master. I love how they keep his face a mystery. I think that's one of the really cool things in this show, is that the first Spinjitzu Master, we've seen him more in recent seasons, season 9, season 10, season 11. but yet they continue to keep his face concealed. That's a really cool mystery. But what I dislike is the Lloyd fake out death. Arguably, that's even worse than Cole's fake out death. It's just, I think it's so laughably bad. They try to make us think that Lloyd is gone with the first Jutsu Master. He even we see him grabbing the first Jutsu Master's hand, and then for some reason Lloyd returns. Like, I don't get that at all. If he was gonna return to the real world of Ninjago, why did they make us think that he went with the first Jutsu Master? Why did they show us grabbing his grandfather's hand to go off with him to the departed realm or wherever? Like, I don't even get why they did that. It just seems so dumb. Why they turned this into another fake out death opportunity. I think this is probably the worst fake out death of all the Ninjago, even worse than Cole's fake out death, which also happens in this episode too.
I mean, I disagree. I personally really like what it did for Lloyd's character, but you know, we've rambled on about this episode quite a bit now, and yeah, but basically for this first episode, and at the end of every debate episode, I will kind of say who really won this debate. And I mean, I didn't expect to beat DailyRoLord. Like, he just has so many points here. He's one of the best Ninjago YouTubers. Definitely knows how to state his point. So I did not expect to beat him, and I did not. He debated very well. So basically, throughout this series, I'll give like 1 point to the person I am debating with. They won, or 1 point to me if I win this debate. And basically, so far in this first episode, you know, basically the people that are debating against me have 1 point, and I have 0 points. So we'll see how that goes throughout the rest of the series. But yeah, we'll go ahead and get into the outro. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the debate segment. So, thank you guys for watching this first debate episode. I know it might have felt a bit messy at times, but it was the first episode. These will improve. And so yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this first episode with my debate with DailyRoLord about endings. And stay tuned for episode 2, where I debate with the Brick Lord about the Oni trilogy. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and have Daily say anything he wants to say before we wrap this up.
Thank you so much for watching this, guys. This has been a great first debate episode, and Bricks on Bricks made great points. I completely disagree that him saying that I won. But yeah, this is going to be a really great series. Please, if you haven't subscribed to his channel, he's a great guy, and stay tuned for any future debate videos he makes. And yeah, thanks. That's all I have to say. See you guys later.
Thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned for my future videos and the future episodes of Ninjago Debate.